Welcome back to AP World History. This is Chapter 10, Part 2. We have just been talking about Charlemagne and the Franks renewing the Holy Roman Empire. On his death, the kingdom is divided among his grandsons. It will fragment and essentially not necessarily go back to the way it was, but certainly it's not. This area is not going to be controlled by one strong person. William the Conqueror, who is a Norman from France, will invade England, and he will defeat the Saxons there, and he will have a kingdom located in England as well as in France. And he will establish the feudalism in England, that is, lesser nobles swearing fealings to him, both in England and in France. From his line, they will be other English kings, Norman kings. Eventually, some of their power will be restricted by the Magna Carta in 1215 CE. There is going to be a series of wars for 100 years between France and England, and this is essentially over power, taxes, land, claiming territory and fighting over it, monarchies in France and England. Neither side will prevail in the struggle, and the hostilities will go on for years. Some of the causes for the Hundred Years' War. The French nobility will select Paul Valois as their king, and he will establish a new dynasty that will last until the 16th century. He was chosen in preference of King Henry III of England, who has a birthright to France, and he will actually call himself the King of France. And so these two will go after each other in terms of control of France. Valois and his followers and King Edward III. This map shows where England claimed land in Flanders and Bordeaux. This was in 1328. And there's going to be an issue as to who really does own the land, who controls the land. Edward was actually a vassal of Philip's, holding sizable French territory, but he's going to claim that he controls more. Flanders, the dagger pointing at the heart of England, and Flanders wanted to be independent from French control, and they asked England for help. Of course, England is more than willing to do that because they want to control more land on the continent. France was not a united country. There's several different kingdoms dotted throughout what we call France today. And the French king only controlled about half the country. Early English victories in 1360, and you can see that the area that they controlled expanded. The height of English dominance, this is in 1429. You can see that a sizable, almost half of France is under English control. The French are going to pursue a course of reconquest, and this is starting in 1429. Joan of Arc is going to be a military leader for Charles VII. They will eventually take Orleans, which is a major coup for the French king in terms of reclaiming France for France. Joan of Arc claimed that she had a vision. She considered herself a Christian. She was intensely loyal to the king. and she will assist him in driving out the English from the land. Eventually, she will be captured and burned to death as a heretic, but the fight will go on. While she was a commander, she dressed like a man, and she was very charismatic. Of course, the King of England is going to denounce her in the church as a heretic, and they're going to seek her death. Joan, seen as a feminist symbol today, certainly she was not the norm in those days in terms of women having leadership. So, as we said before, she is going to be captured. By 16 or 1450, the English had lost all their major centers except Calais. And eventually there will be a cessation of fighting. No treaty is signed, but the war just comes to an end. And France becomes unified under the French king. Now the Crusades are going to take place during the Middle Ages, this Dark Age. Pope Urban II will call for a crusade to take back the Holy Land. He will tell those who were about to undertake this that they will receive a free pass to heaven. There were enough knights and people in Europe who were eager to go to the Holy Land, seeking fame and fortune, and there's going to be several crusades sent there. The first crusade was probably the most successful because they'll be able to take back the Holy Land and hang on to it for 200 years. This is Pope Urban II preaching a crusade. They viewed Jerusalem, the Holy Land, as very sacred to the church, and it should be under Christian control rather than Muslim control. And so there'll be a number of crusades sent out to take back the land. As you can see here, there were a number of crusades sent there. Latter crusades not being quite successful. Now, in terms of Western culture and architecture, the Catholic Church really is the center of learning and culture. It preserves the knowledge. It didn't necessarily advance knowledge. Latin is the language of the church and the educated, and there's going to be very few people who are able to do that, except those who can afford to send their churches or send their children to monasteries where they can be educated. There were these medieval universities will be established primarily by the Catholic Church. And there was some work in chemistry and astronomy, but it's pretty much a slow go. New scientific work was not encouraged. And so they just pretty much preserve what they know. These show some of the locations of universities during the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages. This shows a picture of Oxford. This is some examples of medieval architecture. The round arches, the barrel vaults, thick walls, simplistic construction, small windows. Those things were pretty prevalent on these churches and buildings that were constructed. It shows a few pictures of the Gothic cathedrals. Canterbury Cathedral in England, still standing. This was the interior of a Gothic cathedral. Stained glass windows, all pointing to the glory of God and in religious instruction. This is Notre Dame in France. This shows some of the late medieval art on tapestry. Most of this was on wood, paint on wood and ground gold. Very beautiful. Most of the themes were religious themes. Giotto is going to be a famous painter during this time, and his things are religious themes. The crucifixion, Again, educating people about Christianity. Um, and so that seems to be the primary focus of art. And man reaching out to the heavens, Christ's crucifixion and burial. And we'll stop right there, and then we'll pick up the Black Death in part 3.